Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I'm a sociology PhD student at the University of Kent with a background in criminal justice policy. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how to think like a criminologist. Before we begin, let's take a look at what criminology is. Criminology is an interdisciplinary subject bringing together knowledge from sociology, psychology, social policy, law, and more. According to Edwin Sutherland in 1934, it is the study of lawmaking, law-breaking, and society's reactions to law-breaking. It explores definitions, causes, and controls of crime, and regards crime primarily as a social phenomenon. First, let's have a look at lawmaking. The criminal justice system is made up of several institutions like parliament, judges, and police. Who makes the laws and who enforces them is important to consider in criminology because it deals with issues like power and inequality. Power refers to the ability to act or channel behavior in a particular way. So while some groups possess power, others are subject to power. Inequality refers to a difference in opportunity or recognition between people in society. This may be due to gender, sexuality, race, and so on. Let's take a look at the makeup of these different institutions to see power and inequality at work. Around 41% of MPs are women, and around 14% are considered ethnically diverse. 37% of court judges are women, and only 10% are considered ethnically diverse. And approximately 35% of police officers are women, and 8% are ethnically diverse. MPs, judges, and police all possess power in the criminal justice system, so ideally we want them to be representative of the general population. However, as you can see, the proportion of women and ethnically diverse individuals does not match up to their general makeup of society. Concepts like inequality can help explain the difference in these figures because stereotypes, bias, and other social factors often influence opportunities and ambitions individuals have in society. That's why one of the main aims of criminal justice should be to equalize opportunities for those in power as well as those who are subject to power. Those who are subject to power may or may not commit crimes. For those who do, there are some theories as to why. The biological perspective on crime believes that criminals are born, which is also known as atavism. The biological perspective on crime believes that criminals are born and that deviance is a product of biology. However, biological theories are heavily criticized due to being outdated and based on stereotypes. For example, Cesar Lombroso's theory of biological positivism stated that the shape of one's nose, eyes, or different skull features could determine if somebody was likely to be a criminal or not. On the other hand, sociological perspectives on crime suggest that criminals are made. In other words, rather than being born with a criminal mind, individuals become criminal due to social factors like inequality. While sociological theories on crime are generally more accepted today, they can still be criticized because not everyone who experiences inequality will commit a crime. One example of a sociological theory on crime is Robert Merton's strain theory. Strain theory argues that when individuals cannot attain resources in a legitimate way, they may resort to deviant behavior in order to do so. Again, this does not explain why some people in these situations turn to crime while others do not. These theories on crime raise an important question to criminologists. Is crime the result of social structures, or is it a choice? Before we attempt to answer this question, let's look at the concepts of structure and agency. Structures are social forces that shape behavior or circumstances, such as deprivation and marginalization. We can think of structure and agency at opposite ends of a spectrum, where at one end, individuals turn to crime due to structural inequalities, and at the other, individuals turn to crime due to choice. In reality, crime is very complex and lays somewhere in the middle of this spectrum. As Karl Marx states, men make their own history, but under circumstances existing already. In other words, everyone makes choices, but not necessarily under the conditions of their choosing. This suggests crime can be the result of both structure and agency. Different theories on crime are important to consider because they impact how we think about how crime should be punished. In criminology, there are four main rationales for punishment. They are retribution, incapacitation, deterrence, and rehabilitation. Retribution carries with it an eye for an eye philosophy. It involves inflicting punishment in return for a wrongful act. One important factor of retribution is that the length of the sentence should be proportional to the crime committed. This is known as proportionality. Incapacitation involves putting criminals behind bars. It incapacitates them and literally prevents them from committing another crime by locking them up. Deterrence makes crime look like an unattractive option by inflicting oftentimes harsh, also known as punitive, punishments. It discourages people from committing crime due to the possibility and fear of being caught and punished. Finally, rehabilitation refers to helping offenders re-enter society as productive and law-abiding citizens. It provides resources to avoid reoffense, such as therapies, housing support, education, and so on. Interestingly, a new strategy of punishment has emerged in recent years, known as restorative justice. It is still quite controversial and is not used everywhere. Restorative justice addresses harm by bringing together those who are affected by crime to discuss how the harm can be repaired. This may include offenders, victims, police, community members, and so on. Restorative justice meetings can either replace traditional forms of punishment or be used in addition to traditional forms of punishment. Finally, the success of the meeting can be impacted by each group's willingness to participate in the meeting or not. Now that we've had a look at some of the major focuses of criminology, let's take a look at the University of Kent's BSc in Criminology and Criminal Justice. It's the UCAS course code M902, and the course involves introductions to criminology and criminal justice. It explores theories on crime and harm, develops an understanding of the criminological imagination, and also helps you make sense of society. A bachelor's degree in criminology will prepare you for many future pathways, both in academia, in policy, and in the justice system. Within the justice system, you may want to work in the police force, with prison services, probation services, or different government bodies. In policy, you may want to do research, analysis, social work, or work for non-governmental organizations and charities. Finally, in education, you may wish to be a teacher, a professor, or continue your education further in legal studies or an MSc or PhD like me. My own criminological journey began with a bachelor's in criminology and sociology, followed by a master's in criminal justice policy, and now a PhD in sociology. Along the way, I gained volunteer experience in 2 prisons and a reentry facility. I gained work experience in the cell block of a courthouse. I got teaching experience at both schools and universities. And most importantly, I have a passion for justice and lifelong learning. Thank you for listening and good luck.